right, welcome to the wonderful world of auto mechanics. I'm Tim Hobbs, instructor here at Fairview High School, where we've developed a program called Auto Technology. We've just got through building a new 5,000 square foot shop with the latest technology and equipment installed in it. And a special thanks to the school board and the county commissioners for making this possible for our students here at Fairview High School. We also want to give notice to Kevin Fortner, who is over the building department, Jackie Baggett, which is over the vocation department, that's helped make this thing go through, and the maintenance people of the county, which has also contributed in keeping us going and fixing a lot of little odds and ends. But what we want to do during this session of Shop Talk is give you an idea of how to fix your car at home and how to keep your car out of the shop during the long term that you own your car. The main thing is make your car outlast the payment book. So stick around and we'll be right back into it with the first section of Shop Talk. Today we're going to talk about something that's very important about your car care, and that's your engine oil. Engine oils are formulated to keep friction down and make gas mileage better and make your engine last. Theoretically, most cars will outlast many years of hard driving if the oil is maintained at a proper level and changed according to your driving habits. Now, changing means getting rid of the old oil and adding new oil. You can look at your owner's manual, and most of the time it would say anywhere from 7,000 to 8,000 miles that you need to change oil. Well, the thing about it, it really depends on your driving habits. And we're going to talk about driving habits a little bit and how it's important in when you change your oil as far as the type of oil also that you use. First of all basic oils are good oils. The thing that we need to know about is the viscosity of oils, and this is called SAE. SAE is put on the front of a container, and it's like this particular one, 10W30. 10W30 means that this is the way that the oil can go. This is a multi-viscosity oil. So it has the properties of a thinner weight being 10, a thicker weight being 30. So in cold weather, this acts as a thinner oil, which means the oil gets to the moving parts faster on a cold start and can act like a 30 weight thicker oil when the engine is cruising down the road at highway speeds. The W in it stands for winter grade oil, not W like weight like a lot of people think. So this is a winter grade oil, and this is what we call an all-season oil to be used year-round. Depending on the brands of oils, depending on the additives that are put in them. And we look at the back of oils, we find a little donut on the back of them that tells us about what's in the oil. Now, SAE is also on here as far as the viscosity rating. API is the other one we look at. API stands for American Petroleum Institution. And they're the ones that set the service rating on oils. This started about 1970. S and C rated oils, S being spark ignitions or gasoline engines, C being compression or commercial being diesel engines. They all started out with A, SA and CA. Well, that started in 70. Today we have oils up to as high as SI and CE. So it means that the more stuff that's in the oil as far as additives, the better the oil works for the car. The better gas mileage you get as far as anti-friction devices that are put in the oil from the manufacturers. So it's a good important thing to look on the service rating to see what kind of oil is best for your car. So that gives you a little information about the oil, the viscosity of the oil, and the service rating of the oil. There's basically three types of oils that we find, being a regular base stock oil, which means oil that comes out of the ground, which is most of our oils that we find in today's cars. We also find blends, which are a combination of synthetic and base oils, and we find pure synthetic, which is an all man-made product, which is much more expensive than the base stock oil, but has a lot of properties in it that are real good. But for everything, there's a high in cars, there's also a low, and we'll talk about those in more detail as far as this compared to base oils, price-wise, service, and so forth as we move along. So no matter what brand of oil you use, most all cars today run either a 10W30 or a 5W30. And the reason is cars start much quicker than they did back when we had carburetors. When a carbureted car, you went out and mashed the gas pedal down, cranked the engine over several times before it started. When this happened, oil was being pumped to the system. Today's quicker starting cars, oil has to get to the moving parts faster because the car starts much faster. So it's important to know what weight your car is using. So that's about your oils as far as those things go. Now, which oil is best? any good brand that you like, but stick with a major type brand of oil. A lot of your cut rate oils may be a combination of stuff that you're short in on additives, and additives is what keeps the engine in good condition. Additives are things like 4-point depressants. They're additives like viscosity improvers, anti-rust, anti-foaming, detergents. Detergents and oils are very important because detergents is what cleans the moving parts from carbon. Now, how we get carbon in the engine, each time a piston goes up on a compression stroke and a violent explosion takes place, not all the gases stay in place. A lot of them is pushed right by the piston, and this is what makes our oils dirty. This is where the black comes from, and carbon is black, and it's what dirties up our oil. Now, our filters are designed like this one to take out a lot of particles that are in the oils, and they do this by filtering them out. They're not going to filter out everything, and as the oils wear, then a lot of our additives start to wear too, and this is the need for oil changing. We talked a minute ago about changing oils as far as your driving habits. Well, if you're a person that drives over 10 miles a day back and forth to work, then you can say you can change your oil every 3,000 to 4,000 miles. If you drive 30 or 40 miles a day, you can go maybe 6,000 or 7,000 miles on your oil. But if you're a short-term driver, under 10 miles in a short trip, and you do this constantly, what takes place and builds up in your water is condensation. Condensation, in this case, is formed when heat and cold get together, and it happens inside the crankcase, and this is where water comes from. The water gets in the oil and has to be removed. Well, it can be either moved by paper, like it's in your filter, you can saturate it, or the most easy way is to burn it out. And once the oil gets above the boiling point of water, which oil runs about 220 degrees, then it boils the moisture out and it leaves out through the crankcase ventilation system. But if you're a short-term driver and you drive 10 miles or less, then the water keeps accumulating and it forms what we call water sludge. And these are black deposits of mess inside the oil passageways, which restricts flow of oil down back to the pan. And you can actually starve the oil pan by keeping the oils high in the engine and not letting them drain back through this buildup of this water sludge. So it's important then to change your oil more often and get rid of the sludge. It's not that the oil's broke down, it's just become contaminated. And so changing oil about every 1,500 or maybe even 500 miles, depending if you're a real short-term driver, 4 or 5 miles in each trip, is really going to make a lot of problems with your oil as far as water contamination. Now, the filters are going to absorb only so much water, and as they absorb enough, then they're going to seal off. This restricts the flow of oil. When we get into the next section on this oil change session, we'll go into more about the oil filters and explain to you why this happens and how we're going to get rid of this water that's built up. So we're going to look a little bit more in detail about different types of oils as we go through in this session, and talk about, actually show you an oil change too. We're going to do this, the proper way to change oil, and what's some things to look for in your oils that are coming out. So stick around, we'll be right back. One of the most important things you do about an oil change is use the proper filters. Filters are sold by many different manufacturers and by many names. There's only a few real filter manufacturers, such as Wicks, Baldwin, another company called Champs, and Purelator, that makes most of our filters that we see on our passenger cars today anyhow. But as you see, that we have several filters here, and all these filters actually fit the same vehicle. So you can see there's different sizes and shapes. When you buy a filter, it's not the idea to buy the cheapest filter you can buy, because the filter does a very important job. It filters the oil for carbon that comes out of the oil, that's deposited by the combustion process, and moisture that gets in the oil through the starting process. And this is what needs to stay out of the system. Filters can become contaminated also too and seal off, and have a bypass system built into them to allow the oil to bypass the filter in case the engine does get plugged, this filter gets plugged up. In this case, keeps the engine from burning up. So let's talk about filters. What we see here is a row of filters, and you can see several of them have strings on them. Well, those are made by Purelator. It's an older company that's been around a long time. And you can see it's Motorcraft, MicroGuard, and another one, Purelator. So basically the same filters. The difference is the plies of paper that the company wants in their filters that are buying the filters. Motorcraft has about 55 plies. This MicroGuard has 56, and the Purelator one has about 49. So in that case, you can see there's a lot of difference in the ply. So if we look at different types of filters, we see different filters have different plies of paper. And all the filters will filter. But the manufacturer says on your filters that all filters must meet or exceed manufacturer specifications. So in this case, you at least need to meet or exceed. So let's look at some in this case, the Motorcraft, and we find one here that meets it, one here that's close, and another one here, this one, has 62 plies of paper. So it's got more filter material to do a longer filtering job. Another thing to look for in filters, and this of course you can't see inside of a filter, is that some of these have a spring and some of them have a little piece of bent metal. The bent metal acts like a spring, and this is what the bypass system is in the filter. In other words, when the filter gets plugged up, it pushes the filter up and lets the oil bypass. So you kind of look at the two. Which would you rather trust, a spring or a little piece of metal? In this case, I like the spring much better. Another thing about good filters is the thickness of the can. Some of these have a real nice thick can, some of them are real thin and flimsy. This keeps the filter from bursting. Oil pressure may go up too high and exceed the pressure of the can and actually blow the filter apart. And in cases this has happened. So when you buy filters, you need to look at the material that's in the filters or the reputation of the company. This is one of the filters that we find in a lot of different places, Frams. They advertise the easy, smooth removal. But as you can see, there's a lot of difference between this filter and the other filters. Paper ends, very few plies of paper, and a little check valve system that's not really that good. Another thing we found out about filters is a lot of filters run a seal, like this one. Well, this is a black seal. The better filters run a red seal, which doesn't deteriorate as fast on long miles, like 6,000 or 7,000 miles between changes. The Wix has the red seal, and that's about the only one out of the group that has the red seal. So all in all, it doesn't take much to figure out which one's the better filter. And the difference between paying $1.50 or $5.50 can mean the difference between an engine. So when you buy filters, take a point to look and see what the filters are and make sure that you're getting the quality filter for your car. You're investing a lot of money in your car, and you don't need to have an engine go down because of saving a few bucks here in the filter line. One of the things you got to remember when also taking off your old filter is to look at the bottom of it. Sometimes these rubber gaskets will come off and stick to the body of the engine. In that case, you'll put a filter gasket on top of a filter gasket, which you're going to have a leak. And before you put the filter on, apply a little oil to this surface here and then reapply it back on the car, and it makes a good seal. And hand tighten these only. Now, hand tighten may mean different to other people, but get as tight as you can with your hand and then check for leaks after you started your engine. Putting a wrench back on, it's going to be tough to get it off because it will expand a little bit and be very difficult to get back off. So just make sure you do this right. All right, what we'll do is go through the steps about changing oil. Now, first of all, you need to find a suitable surface at home if you're going to be doing this. Concrete's the best surface there is. Asphalt can work, but making sure that you use jack stands or something under the car to secure it up in the air, and you're not just relying on a jack, even if it's a hydraulic jack. Jacks have a tendency to fall or can fall over and therefore crush you if you're under the car. Use a suitable drain pan to catch your oil in, because oil is recyclable, and you can take it to most auto parts stores and they will take it for you, or you can take it to the landfills and stuff and they have a place to put it there. So make sure you just don't pour it out on the ground. It is damaging to the groundwater. After you get the vehicle up, look to see what size wrench you have. Most imports use the metric sizes, and most late model American cars use metric too. And make sure that you know which from right to left to loosen it up, because you can strip these very easily. And find a wrench that fits, break it loose, and take the plug out and let the oil drain freely. When it quits draining, then it's time enough to put the plug back in. Make sure the seal is on the plug, that it didn't come off in the process, because if this seal's missing, you're going to have a leak. And make sure that you have, again, a wrench that fits tightly. Don't over tighten these and strip them out. Therefore, you're going to make a leak. Next thing is to remove your filter. The filter is usually located somewhere around the engine, and sometimes under even some plastic that you may have to remove to get to it. Filter wrenches are something that you probably need to use. In most cases they're put on by hand, but sometimes they can be real hard and you have to use a wrench. So find a wrench that's suitable for your filter and remove the wrench. After you get the filter off, look for any kind of damage. Make sure that the gasket is still attached to the old filter before you put the new one on. This keeps you from doubling up on it and having a leak. Put a little fresh oil on your filter, apply it back, and screw it hand tighten only. Again, hand tighten means as tight as you can get with your hand. You can check this after the vehicle is started. Then let the vehicle down, fill it back full of the right quality of oil and the right viscosity of oil that you're supposed to have in your car. If you're not sure, check your owner's manual. This information will be in it. Start it up, check for leaks, turn the car off, let the car sit a few minutes, and check your dipstick to make sure that it is proper level. Not, you can refill it this time. Best time to check oil is in the morning before the car even starts, and this is time to do what we call a walk-around inspection. Walking around the car, making sure we don't have a tire flat, we've got something leaking down under our car, and this is a good time to check coolants and check oils and all these things before you take off in the morning. Do one of these at least once a week as far as an under hood check. With people buying now self-service gas, checking oil and stuff like this is something we don't think of until it's too late. Oil is the lifeblood of your car. If you take care of your oil, you change it properly, the car will last for many thousands of miles. Virtually the engine won't wear out if you take care of your oil and your oil does the job it's supposed to do. So remember to take care of your oil, make sure to be safe, wear safety glasses when dealing under a car to keep particles from falling in your eyes, and drive safe, and you'll be in good shape for a long time with your automobile. Make that car outlast a payment book. As high as they are today, it's a good thing to do. All right, one of the things we want to talk about in this session also is car inspection. Now years ago when people drove, they took their car to a gas station and the guy there checked your gas, filled it full up, checked your oil, tires and stuff like this. Well, now we have self-service, so it's a good idea for you to know how to check your car at least once a week for essential things, because a blowed up engine due to lack of oil or due to coolant can cost you thousands of dollars, and also a period of time without a vehicle unless you have to, of course, buy a new one. So a smart thing to do is just learn how to do these simple things, and it doesn't take but a few minutes, maybe on a Saturday morning, to do these things. So let's go through the steps first of all. One of the first things to check is check your coolant level. Now most of the time we don't check coolant level at the radiator anymore. We have a tank called an overflow tank or reserve that we do this in. Just unscrewing the cap or looking on the side of the tank to see how much coolant is in it. If it's proper level, then that part's in good shape. If it's low, it went somewhere. Refill it to the proper level and then start keeping an eye on it to see if it goes down again. If so, you've got a leak someplace and this needs to be taken attention immediately due to keep the engine from overheating and burning it up. Another thing we want to check is the power steering fluid. This can be sometimes on top of the engine, on the side of the engine, depending on the engine. But if you have power steering, then you have a power steering fluid. This is another fluid to check the condition of. See what color it is, it should be clear. If it's dark brown, it's time to have it changed out. Make sure the fluid level is okay, and you got that part done. Another thing to check periodically is your oil. Do this when the engine, before it starts, pull it out and inspect the end of it to see where the level is. You can also see if the oil is real black and may need changing. If it's at proper level, then put it back in. If it's not, then bring the oil level up to where it should be. Another thing to check is your brake fluid. Again, look at it to see what condition it is. If it's not full, then refill. If it's black, nasty, then it needs to be flushed out and changed. Another thing to do is check transmission fluid. Now in this particular case, the engine needs to be running and at operating temperature. So you don't want to do this with a cold transmission. Start it up, let it run a while, bring the temperature up, pull the dipstick out with the engine running and check the level on it. If the level's where it should be, then reinsert the stick, you're in good shape. Also look at the condition of the fluid. If the fluid is brown or dark, you need to have the fluid changed and filtered. In most cases, this will take care of it. You've got some fluid that's scorched, and that's not good for the transmission. One of the other things you need to check too is battery condition. Make sure the terminals are not corroded, are tight, and in good condition. It only takes a few minutes. And the last thing you need to check is your serpentine belt. This is the drive belt that drives all your parts. In this particular case, this one's up and loose, and you can look at the condition of it to see if it's worn or cracked on the inside or the outside. Normally changing these about each 70,000 miles is a good rule of thumb. Now, by doing this, it keeps you off the side of the road of an engine that's heated up or component's not working, since the serpentine belt drives everything on the engine, such as power steering pump, air conditioning, alternator, and such. So these are some of the things you need to check on your hood at least once a week, just to make sure that it's good there. Get in a habit, and this will make sure a long life for the engine as far as the engine itself goes. We're also going to do what we call a walk around on the car, and this is where we walk around the car and we check each tire. This is done good with a tire gauge. Now you just look down at them. To ensure the tires are at proper level, if you have a tire gauge, it's good. Now, one of the things on this particular car is a donut. This is a temporary tire that we've taken off to show you what a lot of tires is on cars today. This is your spare. These things are not to be driven very fast or very far. So if you have to use one of these things, what we call the donut spare, then you need to get a tire changed or your tire fixed on your car and get rid of these things as quick as possible. Again, they're not for high-speed driving. So if you had one on the interstate, don't put this on and try to drive 75 and 80 miles an hour. Drive until you can get to a place to where you can get your new tire. Another thing to check is the wiper blades. Wiper blades usually need changing at least once or twice a year. What wears out blades today is all the material we find in the water, such as acid rain. The sun works on the rubber part of them, and the next thing you know, they start streaking. And you usually find this out when the engine, you're driving down the road and it's raining, then you can't see well. So a good idea on these things is usually change them in the spring and in the fall. And if you do that, then you're in good shape on your wiper blades, and you don't have to be worried seeing through your glass. And again, these things do deteriorate pretty fast today, so at least twice a year it'd be a good idea. And they're very inexpensive, $6 or $8 to change them. Another thing you want to do on your vehicle is make sure the glass is in good shape, front and back. If you have a cracked windshield, it's a good idea to get it fixed so that it can restrict the driver's view. And also make sure you check all your lights. You can do this by turning the lights on, checking the headlights, tail lights, and also brake lights and signal lights to make sure they're all functioning properly. This will give you an extra benefit going down the road as far as safety-wise. So think of these things at least once a week. Do it when you got a little time. Make sure your car is in proper shape, and this is a good inspection to do, again, at least once a week. Not any more often maybe, unless you have problems such as losing oil or losing water. If you are, then you need to take it to a shop and have it immediately taken care of. So this is just some ideas of some things you can do for an inspection. Just want to talk about tires just for a minute. Tires are very important on your car as far as the tread wear goes. This is a tread wear. The tire shouldn't be slick, and most of the tires, you have a little tire indicator on the tires. You can see this one here. If this thing gets worn down to where this line goes all the way across, then the tire is considered to be worn out. If your tire gets down, and I think with only a 32nd of an inch of rubber left, the tire is wore out. Check the edge of the tire to make sure you don't have problems as far as the front end. They're wearing funny. If they're dipping, then you've got a balance problem or a suspension problem. If they're wearing the inside or outside, you have probably something wrong with alignment. So it's a good idea to spot check these two when you're walking around your car. If you have to buy tires, there's a couple things you need to know. One's your tire size. It's usually located somewhere on the tire. On this one, 195 70R14. P stands for passenger, 195 stands for the metric height, 70 is an aspect ratio between the height and the width of the tire, this part. The R stands for radial tire, and the 14s is the rim size. And these are things you need to know about your tire. Now, if you have to buy tires, it's a good idea to look around and get the best tire you can, and this is easily because it's identified on the tire. Right here we have three things: tread wear, traction, and temperature. All three of these are very important. The traction tells us A, B, or C. The temperature tells us A, B, or C. A being the best, C being the worst. Traction or tread wear tells us the compound of the tire. The higher the number, the harder the tire, the longer the tire will last. This makes sense. If you're running a tire with 290 tread wear, then you're running a tire that has a soft rubber compound that will wear out quick. Another thing, if it has a 410 or somewhere in that area, you have a real hard tire, which usually lasts 40,000+ miles. So when you buy tires, it's a good idea to understand this part of your tire in order to get the proper tire for your truck or vehicle.
Gorgeous day, a beautiful park, and a few Boy Scouts. What do you get? Nature Fest 2003 participants had fun, no doubt, but the mission for the day was recruitment. Boy Scout Troop 297 invited anyone who was interested to come and check out the activities. A monkey bridge was set up as a display to show what it is Scouts really do.
Put it in the paper.
Kids spent the day crossing the bridge for their amusement, just to show the fun side of scouting. The Scouts also engaged in the cooking and eating of lunch. On the menu, hobos, or a foiled cooked meal with meat and vegetables. Everyone agreed that they were tasty. Also during the day, a campsite was built. For what is Boy Scouting without camping? Then for the rest of the day, more people crossed the monkey bridge. All there continued to have fun until the Nature Fest was over. Then the Boy Scouts packed up and went home. I'm Jamie Duncan reporting.
Hi, I'm Vince Gill. Did you know that car accidents are the #1 cause of death in young people ages 16 to 20? As alarming as that is, there's something we can do about it. If you just take a simple pledge, it'll help keep your families and your friends safer while you're out on the road. I pledge to wear my seatbelt every time I ride in a vehicle and make sure that others in my vehicle are protected as well. Well, that's it. Come on and join the thousands that have already taken this pledge. Don't be a statistic, be the clique.
All right, we've hoped you enjoyed this session of Shop Talk, and will continue to watch our program as we put on new programs about your car maintenance. Other things that we're going to be doing in the future is brakes, transmission care, air conditioning, suspension work, tires and balancing, and a lot of other things that you can do at home. And if you need some questions answered, ask the professional or where you get your car worked on. The more you know about the car, the more likely you're going to get ripped off in the repair shop. So just be smart about your car, and we'll see you next week on Shop Talk.